Good evening, everybody. This is the third end of our triple header tonight. It took Motor City Math Mo show in the first 2 hours, and now we're back to the sports exchange. Please be welcome. Glad to have Marky Belson back. Welcome back, Marky.
I'm happy to be here with you.
And we got Cliff Neal on as well.
Well,
Muted. And Tommy, and then we have Candy, and we have topics.
How's it going?
No, we're doing all right. So let's get going here because I'll tell you this is one of the most interesting things I've ever seen. But until I ended up researching it, we're going to start off with Hugh Freeze because his passion for golf helped him get fired at Auburn. He was given a $15.8 million buyout to leave after the team started 4-5 and 1-5 in SEC play. What are your thoughts about Hugh Freeze getting freezed out of Auburn with a little bit of money, though? Marky?
Oh, forgive me here for not realizing it was my turn. I think he's no Steve Spurrier if he's being fired for golf. Actually, Steve Spurrier did have something to say about it, and he said, "Look, the reason why he got canned was because he lost ball games, and that's right. You get with this somewhat. I think is an extension of the great Auburn-Alabama rivalry, because everyone here, whatever Alabama does, Auburn has to do. Alabama gets a jet, Auburn has to have a jet. I mean, they're constantly keeping up with the Joneses, and it's a pretty tough Joneses to keep up with. And so a losing coach isn't going to make it. But then the fans start asking, well, why did he lose? Wait a minute, he's got more golf scores online than I would like. And this goes back to last week's topic when we were discussing or a week or two ago, coaches, do they have to sleep in their offices and all this? Right. And it's like, I don't know that he should be, playing so much golf when, Sean Salisbury did pretty much make an accurate statement. The alternative probably was going to be him eating donuts and reading the paper if he wasn't. So, it comes down to you're losing ball games. Right. And the fans who desperately want to keep up with Alabama start looking and scrutinizing any reason whatsoever that Freeze might not have had the success at Auburn that he did at Ole Miss.
Well, number one, Freeze should have stayed at Liberty, and that would have been the end of that. Anytime you walk into a pressure cooker like Auburn, your job to me is going to shorten a lot. I think you should.
I think Liberty has a chance to be the Baptist Notre Dame if they ever get into the right conference. Excuse me. Right. They're not going to do it in a group of 4 conference, right. Group of 6 conference, whatever it is right now. But Liberty, it used to be said in the days of yore with Notre Dame, they had all the Catholic Church and half the mafia recruiting for them. Well, I don't think half the mafia is going to recruit for Liberty, but I do think that already a sizable part of the Baptist Church is, and that's a formidable alliance if Liberty can ever get into the right conference, and I think they could be a big-time player. Look how they've grown over the years already. The problem is college presidents generally don't like to put in their conference a school with the curriculum of Liberty, let's face it.
I agree. All right, Cliff.
Well, it comes down to wins and losses. I mean, it's what it always comes down to. If they were winning SEC championships, they were always contending. They wouldn't give a hollering hootenanny about his golf. It's what it really comes down to. Like Marky said, he's like it's just a lot of the fans. It's like, oh, this is why we're losing, and it's got to be expected. He had to know it was going to happen. It was very mediocre and a losing record. That's never good for a college coach. So, I'm not really crying for him. He has a $15.8 million buyout. That would be nice. Okay, I don't have to work. Great. All right, I'm still getting his money. Awesome. So yeah, that's how I feel about that.
No, that's pretty good thought there, Cliff. All right, Tommy.
Yeah, his golf scores going down and down was a red flag. He's obviously getting comfortable with all the money he was making, and finding ways to play. I'm sure fancy golf courses. It
Keep going.
It, it could be worse. It could be worse. He could be playing golf in Mar-a-Lago while American soldiers are dying.
No, I'm with you
I wish
there.
the American public would fire a guy for playing golf too much.
Good stuff, Tommy. He comes up with these backhanded things. I know where he's coming from. I only worked with Shanny for a while. All right, Candy, you want to close some thoughts on this one?
So he was the 31st head coach for the Auburn Tigers. He signed a 6-year contract, paying him an average of 6.5 annually. He went 15-19, and in the SEC, he only went 6-16. No way you're going to stay a coach with that kind of a record in your conference play. Yeah, to stay home or to stay on the golf course, 15.437,500 to terminate his contract. I'm sure he's hitting plenty of golf balls off some tees now.
No question about it. All right, the only NBA topic we're going to talk about is what Russell Westbrook has passed Oscar Robertson for 15 on the all-time scoring list, and therefore he became the highest scoring point guard in NBA history. Let's face it, Russell Westbrook, to me, passing Oscar Robertson says a lot in terms of his stature, Marky.
Well, one question I ask is just what the role of a point guard is in today's game. I mean, I always thought it was the guy that racked up assists and, had 5 points while his teammates got better and such. I've always felt that the point guard that leads the team in scoring is sort of like the quarterback that leads the team in rushing. It's a sign of modern basketball, I kind of believe, and sometimes a sign of selfish basketball. What can you say? A point guard, 15th all-time scoring list. You start wondering, are you really doing your job?
Right. Makes you wonder. Cliff?
I mean, when you pass Oscar Robertson, that says a lot. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. We all know it. Chances are, this is the last year on his contract. He could go off into the sunset. Maybe that's what he was waiting to do. Pass Oscar Robertson. So he's playing for the Sacramento Kings. Well, good for them. They still have a team in the NBA, Sacramento. The NBA is weird like that because they have those weird markets nobody else has. They don't win really that much. It might win some here and there. I don't think they've ever won a championship in Sacramento. If you can, I don't think they have. But yeah. So hey, tip of the hat to the guy. If he retires, then great. If he doesn't, wants to play another year, I'm sure he'll hook up someplace else.
I can see him thinking Sacramento is going to stay anywhere else. That's the only. They don't mind him, and they got to put something, but he has to put people in the stands. Tommy?
I don't give it any credence at all. He's played 3 more years in the NBA than Oscar Robertson. He has nowhere near Oscar Robertson's stature in the history of the game. I would put it on the same level as Bam Adebayo scoring 83 points to pass Kobe Bryant and even get mentioned in the same breath as Wilt Chamberlain.
I'm going to bring the Bam Adebayo thing on next week as our one topic because I have a lot of thoughts on that. I didn't want to bring it up today. All right, go ahead, Candy.
Well, the other point, Marky, what you were talking about is like, what do point guards do? He also has climbed now to 5th on the assist leaderboard. So the only people ahead of him are Stockton, Chris Paul, Jason Kidd, and LeBron James. So not only did he pass a legend in Oscar Robertson for points, he's up pretty high in the assists as well. So
there you go.
As far as a really good basketball player that passes the ball as well as has a lot of shots.
Okay, well, let's keep it rolling here. South Alabama has actually hired former NFL quarterback receivers coach and passing game coordinator Tim Rattay. He was an offensive analyst at LSU. Marky, give me your thoughts about how Rattay is going to go out there and obviously help the cause.
Yeah, well, he was a quarterbacks coach under Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. I believe with South Alabama, I did a story on them about 10 years ago with Saturday Down South about them starting up their football program. And actually, I thought it was a pretty good place to start up a program. And their rise up to FBS has not really surprised me because, Mobile, I mean, it's not New York City, but it's a city of some size and decent area. And it needs its own team to root for. In this case with Rattay, they're getting a coach who, maybe isn't coming directly from being an offensive coordinator somewhere, but does have an interesting pedigree as a former NFL quarterback, and also he went to Louisiana Tech, Terry Bradshaw U. He won a couple of titles in the old UFL. So did Marty Schottenheimer. That's kind of surprising to some people, but in the old UFL and the United Football League of days gone by. And, as you mentioned now, the offensive assistant at LSU, maybe you'd like a little stronger background, a direct coaching position before you become a head coach. But for the Jaguars, I mean, you could have hired someone with hadn't paid his dues as well as Rattay had. I think that, he has definitely paid his dues to get a spot at a place like South Alabama, where I think you can do well as a group of school.
Well, let me tell you, Candy and I were over at the Senior Bowl, and they played those games at the University of Southern Alabama. That's a nice campus, and the stadium is pretty decent. So I think I hear they're going to put it back to Ladd Peoples in a few years, a couple more years later, when they fix it up. But yeah, that's a pretty good program out there with the Jaguars at USA. Cliff?
I remember Tim Rattay from it's a little bit of time for San Francisco. I remember him playing there. It was, his career is over. He's got to find something to do with coaching. He seems to have done a little bit there, but passing game coordinator, it's like I'm trying to wrap my head around what exactly is that. Why isn't he just a quarterback's coach or the offensive coordinator, and then he's receivers coach? So it's kind of weird to me that
he was the quarterback's coach. He was quarterback's coach at Oklahoma State.
Okay, all right. So, but I'm just trying to wrap my head around of what the job is that has to do, how that's different than the other jobs. I'm not exactly sure how they break that down. I mean, South Alabama, sure. I mean, he did coach a little bit at LSU, which is high profile himself. So we'll see. We'll see if he makes a difference. I'm not sure, but they got to start playing the games. It's the only way we're going to be able to get a result.
Tommy?
Yeah, he seems, he played in the NFL for a while, so it seems like he's still learning the coach's ropes, climbing the ladder. I guess the thing that strikes me is that Major Applewhite is the head coach of South Alabama, and Major Applewhite has been some big-time places, Texas and Alabama. He was at Houston for a while. So if Major Applewhite trusts him, that's quite an endorsement. If Major Applewhite's trying to build something in South Alabama.
Okay, that works for me. Candy?
So, Cliff, a passing game coordinator is an assistant coach responsible for designing, installing, and calling the team's aerial attack, often focusing on situational football like third downs, 2-minute drills, red zone efficiency. They work closely with the offensive coordinator, but so they research and implement new passing concepts, routes, pass protections, and do that kind of thing. So
okay, so do they have a running game coordinator?
I'm not sure.
If you're going to have the passing game,
I have heard of that position. I can't speak for great knowledge of the USA staff, but I have heard of that position.
Okay.
Yeah. So as far as Scott, yeah, we were on the campus for South Alabama. Nice campus, nice stadium. Really liked it. There is a run game coordinator in some places. I don't know if it's at South Alabama, though. I'd have to do a little more research before I could tell you on that.
I do have another question. Is there a lot of conflict between if they have one of each? Is there a lot of conflict between the two to try to get the attention of the offensive coordinator?
I don't know.
Sorry, it's a question that just pops in my mind.
No problem. Yeah, I mean, everybody's spoken on this topic?
Yes.
Okay, let's move on. Last week we did talk about David Ortiz, and I found a footnote that I just wanted to mention. And that's this. Obviously, the reason that Ortiz ended up leaving is the Twins, when they released him, that his contract was going to go on an arbitration, and he was going to have a high number. So in retrospect, that's what ended up. It was all about finances. Is really what it turned out to be, as it usually is with the Twins. Anybody else want to add to that real quick? Of course, they all probably they know they regret letting him go, but money told the whole story. I know we talked about it last week. Any other thing changed with almost y'all? No, doesn't sound like it. Okay, no big deal. All right, well, let's talk about the turnaround of the Detroit Mercy Titans. They went 1-31 in 2024, and they nearly made the NCAA tournament, but they fell a little bit short. Let me go over the particulars here with the Titans, because obviously they were 1-31 back in 24, and they were pretty close to winning the Horizon League. But when you think about it, back then, when they finally won a game, the Titans started the season 0-26, but ended up beating IUPI, according to Brad Galley. Now, Detroit Mercy men's basketball is one of the laughing stocks in recent years, but in just year two, Mark Montgomery has the Titans, like I say, not on the doorstep. Again, they fell a little bit short. Let's keep the 30. Detroit Mercy, well, they're talking about how close that they were, and we'll continue on. But this program itself has made the NCAA Division I tournament 62, 77, 79, 98, 99, and 2012. And they had quite a season, really. So, Marky, what are your thoughts about the turnaround for the Titans?
Well, I mean, it goes to show you how things can just change on a dime in modern college athletics. But and forgive me, I'm blanking on the name, but don't the Titans have an outstanding scorer, like a 3,000 point scorer on this team?
I don't know.
Yeah, his name's Antoine Davis, and he was trying to break Pete Maravich's record, and his dad sacrificed the team. Mike Davis was the coach, sacrificed the team for his kid chasing a record. That's why they were 131.
Well, I mean, I can recall, I was going to say, when you have an outstanding player like that, I mean, the fact that somebody scores so much and you start thinking, okay, here's that single star player that can elevate a mid-major to good levels or something. And I almost thought, that, the record was somewhat modest when you had a player like that. Nevertheless, my one University of Detroit story, Detroit Mercy, comes back from being a sports talk show host a few years ago in the Tri-Cities, Tennessee area. And ETSU was going to play Detroit Mercy. And I'm thinking, how do we get a guess? How do we prepare for this? I said, reach out to Dick Vitale. Right. Because Dick Vitale in the 70s, you mentioned the NCAA, he was their head coach. That's how he got the Pistons job and eventually became a famous basketball commentator. All right. So I don't really expect to get some. But then also I get a tweet. I said, look, I'm sorry. I can't do it. But, go Titans. And I'm thinking at first, go Titans. Well, he knows that I'm from Tennessee, right? I mean, the Tennessee. It took me the longest time. Wait, he's talking about Vitale is talking about his old team and ending it with go Titans. And we just thought that was so cool, Yeah.
Right. So that, like I say, Mark Montgomery did a well of a job in year 2. Cliff?
I mean, to totally turn a team around like that is kind of amazing. But I know, especially with the way athletes can go from one in this world now, from one school to another to another.
Mhm.
It is surprising, but it isn't. Depending on but I mean, it had to be a little bit tougher for them because they're not that big name program, so they probably deserve a little bit more credit for being able to do that and be able to get enough talent to be able to do that. I do have a question. Did they get a berth to the NIT if they didn't get into the big tournament?
They weren't in the NIT. They last were in the NIT, I believe, 2013, 2012, somewhere around in there.
Okay, that's I never quite understood the selection process for that. I always thought it was like a bunch of teams that were like on the bubble that just basically missed the big
Right.
dance, and they just kind of like they invited everybody else, and whoever kind of came, they'd be happy with that.
It's morphing now, the NIT, into a mid-major tournament, which I
Yeah.
think is probably a good thing. The crown is for the also-rans that didn't make it, but the NIT, and the thing about that is, you're right. At one time, it was like the guys didn't make it, and sort of we're number 69, that sort of thing. But when you had Chattanooga won the NIT last year out of the Southern Conference, and the Southern Conference wasn't going to get 2 bids. But do you see where when a regular season champ in a league like that gets an invite to a mid-major tournament with some major teams sprinkled in, they win it, what a statement that can make for them, and that they can kind of say, hey, you know something? We beat this field. Just think what we could have done in the NCAAs. You counted us out. We should have been an at-large team. And I think you'll see fewer and fewer, the gap between the majors and mid-majors, at least right now, has really expanded. However, it is an intriguing thing that a regular season champ from a mid-major league that doesn't win their tournament, and they go on and win an NIT, that sort of does say, hey, you know something, we really did belong.
Well, it gives them a chip on their shoulders what they do. You win that
Except
tournament.
that
and
Chattanooga finished 9th. Except that Chattanooga finished 8th in their conference this year out of 10. So that chip didn't last too long.
Well, no, I agree there. Okay.
Well, I thought I answered. That's great input. It's I pretty much said what I needed to say about that. It's good job, Mark Montgomery.
All right, so let's go on to Tommy's favorite person here, and that's the Pearls, right? Because I know he's been waiting to talk about them.
No, man, I got to talk about Detroit.
Oh, go ahead. You talk about Detroit, then we'll go ahead and give you the Pearls.
I got
Go
lots to say
Titans,
about
as I
Detroit.
tell.
I'll bet you do. Go ahead.
Mark Montgomery played for Judd Heathcote in the late 80s and early 90s at Michigan State. And at the time, Tom Izzo was an assistant coach. Montgomery was later the head coach at Northern Illinois. He had some up and down success, won the MAC 1 year. And he was also spent a long time as Izzo brought him back to Michigan State as an assistant coach. He might be a guy that would be in position to succeed Izzo, except he's 55. So he's going to be, I expect Izzo to coach another 2, 3, 4 years. So he'll be pushing 60 by then. But Detroit, they were miserable, 1-31. And then Montgomery's first year, he got them to 8-24.
Right.
This year they went on a run. He's still rebuilding the program, but they went on a run in the Horizon tournament to the semifinals to, that's why they became a kind of a hot item but overall their record was 17-15, still a big turnaround from 8-24, but that's probably why they didn't get invited to the NIT. But when you're talking about Detroit, you're talking about a lot of basketball history. Spencer Haywood played at Detroit. In the 1968 Olympics, he was from Detroit, Pershing, and his teammate in high school was Ralph Simpson, who played a long time in the ABA and NBA and at Michigan State. If you can imagine those two guys on the same team, they went unbeaten and just destroyed any team they played in Michigan on the way to the state title. But Spencer Haywood went to Trinidad Junior College, and after that was the 1968 Olympics. That was when a lot of the black athletes boycotted the Olympics, including Kareem, then Lou Alcindor. And so Spencer Haywood ended up on the Olympic team, and he saved the Americans. They won the gold medal. There was a lot of talk that this was going to be the first time the Russians won the gold medal, but Spencer Haywood had a monster Olympics, followed that up with an All-American season at Detroit, and then he was the first guy to go hardship when he signed with the ABA. But you also have to talk about Vital's teams. When he was at Detroit, he had been an assistant at Rutgers when they went to the Final Four, and Detroit hired him, and he was able to successfully recruit a lot of Detroit talent from Detroit high school talent that usually didn't stay home. Right. Guys like John Long and Terry Tyler, they ended up in the NBA. And I like to tell this story. So when Vital went to the Pistons, they had promoted Smokey Gaines as the head coach. And I like to tell this story. It's Magic freshman year. And they went down to Detroit and played at Callahan Hall. And I saw the best dunk. I say this many times. Really? I saw the best dunk I've ever seen. Michigan State was still unranked, although they ended up going to the Elite Eight that year. It was Magic's freshman year. Right. And Detroit was ranked. And the Spartans, they blew them out of the gym. They scored 100 points. But on one breakaway, Magic was going down the court, one of those breakaway scenes. Terry Tyler and John Long, future NBA players that were leapers, were chasing after him. Magic goes up in the air for a casual layup with his right hand, and Terry Long and John Long are swatting at the ball, and Magic just dropped the ball with his left hand behind him. He had an empty hand going to the basket. The ball took one bounce. Greg Kelser swooped it up on a full blast sprint and slammed it. Really? I still say that's the greatest dunk I've ever seen. And then Smokey Gaines, he had it going for a few years there, replacing Dick Vitale, but then he fell out of favor. Smokey used to use all of Dick Vitale's lines when he was at Detroit. He would just repeat. None of it was original. He just repeated everything he learned from Dick Vitale.
There's nothing wrong with that, though. Magic Johnson, Greg Kelser, and now I know the University of Detroit authority as well on top of Michigan State. Great stuff, Tommy. That was good.
Well, I just know Spencer Haywood, and then I remember that game in Detroit because I was in college at the time.
Okay, no, it's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Now he's a Spartan and he became a Titan tonight, at least for this segment.
Yeah, they talk about, when people talk about the great dunks, they talk about windmills and all that stuff. Yeah, I say the best one was the way Magic Johnson had Terry Tyler and John Long swatting at his empty hand, and Kelser coming down like a freight train.
Okay, Candy, what do you want to add to this?
Detroit Mercy has retired 11 jerseys in their program history. Oh. They've put 23 alumni have gone on to play in the NBA, and 2 have played in the NBA G League. So quite a history. Anytime you're retiring 11 jerseys, that's a lot because there's only so many numbers, especially for basketball. So,
but they've had a pretty good rich tradition down there. So for them to retire 11,
another name I should have mentioned, Dave DeBusschere from the
right. Well, again, he's probably one of the retired jerseys.
Yeah, from a Detroit high school, and I think they're remodeling Callahan Hall. I think they're putting some money into it. Yeah. And Izzo, being the coach that he is, agreed to play Detroit to kind of help Mark Montgomery with exposure. A lot of times Coach K never liked to play his old players who became coaches. He never liked to beat them, but Izzo knew it was important to Montgomery and trying to build a program. And so they played last year, and I think they're going to play again next year.
Yeah, but Tom Izzo's good about that, though, Tommy. Think about it. He plays Oakland University every year for the most part, and then he gets
that's Tom Izzo's MO. You're right.
Well, right. So when it comes Oakland, he'll go ahead and play a lot of these teams to help them out. Tom Izzo will play anybody. He's not afraid to play anybody, big or not, and helping them out. Tom Izzo, yeah, you're right. There just aren't enough of him around. So, all right, let's keep moving along here. I know a couple people have to get out of here at 10. I want to get to as much as we can. One of Tommy's favorite people is Steve Pearl because he got a 5-year deal during the fall. And obviously his first season at the helm was anything but because he did fall. I think 17 and 16, and he made the NIT and didn't make the NC2A. Much of the dismay of Bruce Pearl. Tommy, you're pretty outspoken about the Pearls. What are your thoughts about Steve Pearl getting
you want me
this
to lead
job?
off? And it's nepotism at its worst. It's nothing unusual about that. Bobby Knight did the same thing for his kid at Texas
Right.
Tech, but Bobby Knight didn't go on TV and thump drums to get Auburn admitted to the NCAA tournament over Miami of Ohio or some other mid-major
Right.
like Bruce Pearl. Bruce Pearl, he's turned out to be a real con man. If you watch him, if you follow his stuff on Twitter. But anyways, Auburn, this is how bad it is at Auburn. They put something out on Twitter today. I think, Auburn's record was 18 and 17, something like that. And they put something on Twitter today that Steve Pearl set the Auburn record for a first-year coach with 18 wins, broke the record of a guy named Joel Eves, who went 17 and 7 back in 1949-50. Obviously, they played a lot fewer games. A little bit of a difference between 18 and 17 and 17 and 7.
You think? Okay. All right, go ahead, Marky. Great stuff, Tommy.
I'm reminded some of the modern day record that don't really mean anything. First year coach at our program to win 18 games. That actually sounds to me like you're not that great of a basketball program. And really, before Charles Barkley, I don't think Auburn ever even made the NCAA tournament. That was a football school, and basketball was a tremendous afterthought until Sonny Smith coached there and Charles Barkley played there. But anyway, the interesting thing about the Pearl family, and maybe I shouldn't say this, they really do know how to get people to like them and have Teflon. You will have, I know we're going to be talking a little bit about Rick Barnes in the future. You will have half of Knoxville that if they could snap their fingers today, even with the show cause penalty, they would fire Rick Barnes for Bruce Pearl. Is that because Rick Barnes is a horrible coach? Absolutely not. In fact, there's nothing that Pearl has done did at Tennessee that Barnes has not. But right. It's just somehow his personality. He didn't play college basketball, but somehow his personality can win you over. He leaves Tennessee. His assistants are on show cause penalties and all this. But somehow, now Auburn, great. Let's go there. Somehow he is a Teflon coach. Now you are seeing this. I'm reminded, you say Bruce Pearl does rub people the wrong way. I don't know if anybody remembers when he, during a halftime interview, rubbed up against Aaron Andrews. And yet somehow, this would get other people fired. Somehow it's, good old Bruce. And just in closing, I'll just say this. You mentioned Tom Izzo before, and I know I cover ETSU a bit, East Tennessee State. Back when Ed DeChilis, many years ago, was the coach at ETSU, he got a home-and-home series with Tom Izzo and Michigan State to help him advance what was a really down program. That was big, that you get a home-and-home when you're just ETSU with Michigan State. Well, as Miami of Ohio proves, it's difficult, much more difficult even today for the mid-majors to schedule. And when Steve Forbes, a former Bruce Pearl assistant who was given a show cause penalty under Pearl, was at ETSU, I mentioned the story about Izzo, and Ed DeChilis said to me, Tom did me a favor. And I asked, hey, doesn't Bruce Pearl owe you a favor in the hopes of maybe Auburn and ETSU getting a series or something like that. And Forbes came right back to me. I don't have that kind of a relationship with Bruce Pearl. That was his former right-hand man.
Okay, to answer Earl's question about Rick Pitino, I think he's getting a raise at St. John's. He deserves every nickel of that. He's done a whale of a job there. Okay, we'll turn over to you, Clef.
Well, I mean, he's been on the team since 2014, and 18 wins, 17 losses, not very good. I do have a question about you mentioned his dad rubbing up on it, Erin Andrews. Did that happen before or after she had the big thing with the guy who was taking the pictures?
It was before, as I recall, it was during a Tennessee-Memphis basketball game, and I want to say 17, 18 years ago.
Okay, so I mean, it's either I'm not saying it's okay at all, either way, but what he did there. But I think if that would have happened like after the controversy, I think that would have like really blown up. Her having to deal with that, and then and she's probably dealt with a lot of other stuff that you never even hear about, which is terrible. But yeah, so it's, I mean, it's nepotism. I don't know how well that really works with. You have some coaches that follow the dad and they do pretty good, but lots of other times they don't. Just because they got the same name doesn't mean they're going to get the same sort of success. He'll probably have the job longer than he should deserve it because of the last name. But we'll see what happens with that. I mean, but you know how schools can be with those kind of things and traditions and names and stuff. So stuff like that. So.
Okay. All right, Tommy.
Well, I already commented, but I do have one thing I want to add about Auburn is, Auburn signed Henry Hill as their first black basketball player in the 1968-69 season. And that was 2 years before Bear Bryant ever signed a black player on his football program in the 1970-71 season. Yet if you talk to the average fan, they'll say Bear Bryant was the one out there leading the way. So Auburn was 2 years ahead of Bear Bryant in basketball, 1 year ahead of Bear Bryant with James Owens in football, and even Alabama's basketball coach was 1 year ahead of Bear Bryant in football. And then the other thing that separates Auburn from Alabama, Auburn doesn't get enough credit for being ahead of Alabama. The other thing that separates them is the athletic director from back in those days has apologized for the school and his own role. He says not only should they have recruited black players earlier, they should have recruited more of them, not just one, leaving these guys isolated on the campus. They've apologized. Alabama's never apologized for anything. In fact, they distorted the story to make them sound like they were Crusaders, and they were anything but.
Okay. Candy, you have the last word on this, and I do want to get to Rick Barnes. Well, we have Marky on.
On January 24th, Pearl's Tigers upset the defending national champions number 16 Florida Gators on the road by a score of 76-67, snapping a 30-year drought of Auburn victories in Gainesville. The other thing is Auburn collapsed down the stretch. They lost 9 of their final 12, and that's why they're not dancing right now. But is it a good hire? I don't know. I like Bruce Pearl as a coach, so it'll remain to be seen how Steven does.
Yeah, I mean, I like Bruce Pearl as a coach. Everywhere he's done, he's won. So it's interesting. Obviously, he had 1 year. He gets to go in the NIT. So, I mean, let's see if he can win against the also-ran. As far as go to the chat room, Earl, I don't think Miami, Ohio is a Cinderella team. I just don't see it. I mean, they'll see what they can do. The MAC competition is a lot different than what we have in the big tournament. All right, let's go to we have Marky and Tommy on for another 12 minutes. I want to get to at least 2 more topics if I can. Tennessee basketball coach. We all know 39 years as a Division I coach, 30 NCAA tournament bid. Rick Barnes actually tied Roy Williams for the third most NCAA tournament trips all time. Mike Krzyzewski, 36, and Jim Boeheim, 35 are the only others at 30 plus. That's pretty good company, though, isn't it, Marky?
Yes, it is. And I'll give you this. Rick Barnes, when he came to Tennessee, I was, saying, and it is weird, but if you did go to Knoxville and you asked half the Tennessee fans, would you fire, Rick Barnes for Bruce Pearl? I'm telling you, half of them would say yes. And it boggles the mind, but this is just the hold that the Pearls have on some fans and some teams that they've coached at. But Barnes actually has done more at Tennessee than Pearl ever did. Well, Pearl was the first guy, I think, to ever take the Vols to a number 1 ranking. Barnes has done that twice. And another thing that Barnes has done, win the SEC tournament, something the Vols hadn't done since 1979. Barnes is a very likable coach. The only problem, never made the Final Four. Yeah, so he's got that sort of like Mike Tomlin storm cloud, or Marty Schottenheimer I mentioned earlier, and all that. It just, geez, all those teams he's had, no Final Four. What's going on here, and all this. So that's something to look at the NCAA tournament. How far can a Rick Barnes team go?
Well, the thing is,
I'm holding them back. I mean, but I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I had a chance to work with Coach Barnes when he was with Providence and out in Texas. He's actually a coach, but an even better guy. And he's done a good job with Tennessee. Once upon a time known for women's basketball, he's done a good job with the men's program as well. All right, Cliff.
I mean, to be in that company says something. No, he hasn't won quite as well as, Coach K and some of the others. But I mean, to still at least be consistent and be in the dance as many times as you can be there and really have that kind of success, to just get a chance to be there so often. Says something for his for what he's done there. I don't know when he's gonna retire. He's in his 70s now. And so
we'll see. Like he's ready to retire. He's enjoying himself.
Yeah, I'd say keep going. Keep going. Just if you're having fun with it, keep going. But yeah, he's there again. The NCAA tournament. I noticed that they have a play-in for the 11th seed, which I don't get. To me, I can understand the 16 seeds, but they have a play-in for the 11th seed. I kind of lost what they were doing with the whole NCAA tournament when they went past the 64, and I figured like maybe the 16s, but an 11th seed, that's just odd to me that they have to wait to see what's going on with that game. But I'm sure he's going to win the game, and they'll probably go a couple rounds. But yeah, he's done a good job, and I mean, to be in, like I said, to be in that kind of company says something.
All right, Tommy.
Yeah, he's had a great career. He was success at Providence, turned that job into Clemson in the ACC, had success there, made it to Texas, had success at Texas, but I guess they went a couple of tough seasons, and Texas bailed on him too quickly. I don't think Texas has ever really recovered, been any better than they were since then. So he's always been a good coach everywhere he's been. And as long as we're talking about personalities, he and Tom Izzo are very good friends. And as an example of that, I mean, remember when they had the fires in Maui, and they had to they didn't cancel the Maui Classic, but they had to move it off the island to the mainland. Barnes and Izzo got together and played an exhibition game with all the proceeds going to the Maui Relief Fund.
Hey, Tommy, do you think you'd give me an extra 10 minutes or so so we could get to all the college topics while you're on? Do you mind?
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be good. Because I know you like to talk about college basketball, and I loaded this show with the intent that you were able to do it. So, Candy?
His overall head coaching record is 858 and 434. In the tournaments, he's 33-28. In the NIT, he's 5-4. Long longevity career. That's why we're mentioning his name with all those other greats.
Well, let's continue talking about great coaches. I have a few more I want to talk about. And that's why I named this show here college basketball legendary coaches, and because there are coaches to lead 5 programs in the NCAA tournament include Fran McCaffery, Steve Alford, W. Smith, Rick Pitino, and Lon Kruger. All right, we'll start it off with you, Marky.
Well, I mean, the 5 coaches that you say 5 coaches, or the coaches that have taken 5 teams, I'll get it out of my mouth, to the NCAA tournament. That was what, Kruger, Pitino, and who else did you have?
Yeah, you have McCaffery, Alford. Yeah, okay, let me go over it again. I'm not tripping myself here. 5 programs. You have Fran McCaffery, Steve Alford, Tubby Smith, Rick Pitino, and Lon Kruger.
The question that I have is, I mean, if you're taking 5 different teams, the NCAAs, it sort of says to me that there was a team somewhere in your history as a coach that you departed from that should have kept you. That's sort of the take that I would get. And I mean, we know that Pitino is mobile. I mean, for a variety of reasons, and all this. But you listen to some of those names and like, how did Alford bounce around so many? Shouldn't there be like a Big Ten team that sort of say, yeah, Steve Alford from the '87 title team. Let's make him our coach for life and all that. Yeah. It's somewhat surprising that those guys are bouncing around as much as they are.
Give me a break. When you talk about Alford, started out in Iowa, then he goes to New Mexico, goes to UCLA, and then he ends up in Nevada and wherever else. So he gets around a little bit.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, you would think that a guy with that background, and you mentioned Iowa, and of course he was the point guard of the '87 national champions at Indiana, played for Bobby Knight. You'd think that there'd be some Big Ten team that would look at the Steve Alford and say, yeah, that's who we want. And somewhere along the line, and, he'd have that 10 or 15 year career there. So, outside of Iowa for a short period of time, it just hasn't really happened for him.
Okay. I love your candor, Marky. Yeah. But those are 5. All right, Cliff, you have anything you want to add to this real quick?
Yeah, it's kind of odd. I mean, these coaches do really well. Maybe is it a personality thing, or is there some sort of, I don't know these guys. Is there some tension behind the scenes, or with administrators or college president? I don't know. Or maybe the boosters didn't like them. I don't know. Or I don't know. I can't explain why if you have got guys who can be successful, but they just jump around. And I think winning would be good enough, but that's a good.
Well, don't worry. Here, Cliff, let me lift you up a little bit here. Number one, these are 5 quality coaches, and they have a way to turn programs around. And there's definitely they've done more power to them. Tommy?
Yeah, well, the one thing they all have in common is they started out at a smaller school and worked their way up to the top. I think Pitino's first job was Boston University, not Boston College. And he just kept climbing the ladder. And then, of course, he got in his NCAA trouble. And he's managed to work his way back to St. John's. Lon Kruger was at Kansas State, went to Florida, Illinois, and then he made a mistake of going to the NBA. And so he got knocked down a few pegs, but he was still a valuable enough coach that Vegas hired him, and then he made it to Oklahoma. Steve Alford, kind of a similar story, Iowa, New Mexico, and now Nevada, I think he's at. So they all for that many schools, they all started out lower level, worked their way up to the top, for whatever reason got knocked down a peg, and still managed to take another school to the NCAA.
Yeah. I just think it's a credit to these guys. I really do. Andy, and the last word. I only have a couple more to go, and then a little light note from ESPN about Washington Post. So that's all we have left in the show. And Marky, if you have to go, I understand. Do you have to go exactly 10? I know that you always say, or it's up to you, Marky. I don't want to keep any longer.
I would just say this with the ESPN Washington Post. disappointed that the Washington Post has decided to get rid of the sports section. Historically, the newspaper, of course, being a sports writer there, I've always felt the best writers were on the sports page. If for no other reason, the deadlines you have to meet are much more constant in sports. You can have a much more creative prose in sports than you can in writing hard news and such. So it's a more creative, you're really talking about people in sports, and not so much, well, you talk about events, but there's that features and all that. It surprises me not, though, that ESPN is hiring these sports writers. I mean, look, Tony Kornheiser is now more famous for, pardon the interruption, than he ever was for the Washington Post. Let's face that fact. And historically, ESPN does this. I'm curious. Will the sports reporters come back? I'd love to see it, but I don't think it will. But but it's something that ESPN does. But it also, I will say, does sort of mention the political leanings of both ESPN and the Post. That would be where they would be hired and such. So, I mean, we know what the editorial leanings of both the Post and ESPN, what they are. So it's not a surprise. But I do see where it's going. I'm glad the guys working for the Post still get paid, doing what they do so well. That's good. It is, but I do think that it is speaking very poorly of the Washington Post, which had a great sports section for how many years. Is to say, no, we can't keep that. It's not the paper it once was when you do that.
Yeah, anytime a sports reporter can land a job somewhere, I'm always happy because the jobs are disappearing. More power to you.
All right, and with that, I bid you adieu. Go check out Marquis Bills. Yeah, go check out MarkyBillson, the fourth on YouTube or TikTok if you want to know the latest on East Tennessee State.
All right, we'll see you next Wednesday night, Marky. Thank you very much for being here. Bye. All right, with that said, we'll stay on that topic real quickly about ESPN absorbing or taking on those writers. Cliff, what are your thoughts? Obviously, you live in that area.
Yeah, well, yeah, I teach at a Towson University, so we're not that far away from DC. Right. And when that news came down, that all those sports reporters wound up, they said, "Oh, we're not going to do sports anymore." That was huge. Well, obviously, DC is a big sports town, and Washington Post is such a big outlet there. And and I come from a little bit different angle with it, from the fact that I came from TV too, and I did work in TV news, and I'm also now teaching the kids. It might have also come down to just money wise, because the way we have now, trying to hire journalists. The kids now have to know more now and do more different things than ever before. It's not like when you guys got started and you've had to adapt like ridiculous amounts from when you first started to what you do now. They have to know so much more. And when it comes down to money, a lot of these people are probably making a good amount of money, and that's what they look at. And it's not right. It takes away from the Washington Post. ESPN, yeah, they went in there. There's some top-notch journalists. Why wouldn't we hire them? I know the Baltimore Banner by us has hired a couple people, at least one person, I think, from the Washington Post. So I mean, it's not as bad. I mean, there's less jobs, but there's more things you can do independently with technology now, and have your own brand and stuff. So it is a different world where they might be able to maybe even make more money and do a lot of different things.
Okay, Tommy, some quick thoughts, and we only have two more topics to go, and they're both college basketball related. This shouldn't be too long.
Yeah, there are a lot of talented writers at the Washington Post. Candace, and not just ESPN, Candace Buckner was a columnist, and she's at The Athletic. And actually, that's another example. What the Washington Post did isn't really that new, because the New York Times scrapped their sports department, and they just give you The Athletic. The Athletic is the New York Times sports page. The difference is being that Jeff Bezos sold out the Washington Post to acquiesce to become a sycophant for Trump and invest It's not about money because he spent $68 billion to make this phony movie about Melania documentary. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's not nothing new. It isn't anything new because of the New York Times and the Athletic. And yeah, it's just a completely different market. People don't read newspapers anymore.
That's true. Yeah, and believe it or not, Tommy, when you say that, one of the reasons I created our platform here is I decided I knew that I was never going to print them, but that's when I got ahead of it to go the online route. And I said I could do this. And I have Candy doing the behind the scenes stuff, and that's just unbelievable how it's worked out. Great point, Tommy. Candy, make it rapid fire, 2 more topics, and we're done. We're not going to mess around with the brackets. Nobody ever gets them right anyway. So that's why I wanted to isolate some key points, and we'll continue to do that next week. Go ahead, Candy.
I would just add the industry has
Candy?
changed. The industry has changed so much. If you want to read about the changes, read Scott's book. He talks about some of the industry changes in his book. Big newspapers are going by the wayside because people aren't picking up. You don't go to a doctor's office and see newspapers in there anymore. Sometimes you'll see magazines, but most of the time you see people on their phone reading on their phone instead. So that's the way of the.
All right, final 2 topics tonight, and they are going to go rapid fire so we can all get out of here. This is my 3rd show. Obviously, we want to make sure that I have a couple more left to go, but it's been a fun night talking college basketball, these other topics. And we're going to go straight to John Calipari, the first coach to win an SEC tournament championship at multiple schools. He has now won 7 SEC titles. Quite an accomplishment. Right, Cliff?
Once again, John Calipari, everywhere he goes, he succeeds. He's doing it again. I'm not really surprised by that. It's great. It's great to see. He had some issues there for a while, but some coaches do have some issues. Some things pop up, but wherever he goes, he wins, and that's what really matters, and that brings money and fame to their schools.
Tommy?
Yeah, it's kind of similar story. He took UMass to the NCAA, Memphis, made a mistake going to the NBA, came back to college at Memphis, Kentucky. Kentucky's not a good place to be as far as having the fans behind you win, lose, or tie. And so he actually made a smart decision to leave Kentucky and go to Arkansas and get it rolling again.
Yeah. Earl, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give my fielding the 68 sheet to Candy, and if you want to hang in there for fire up, she can take some references off of that if she wants to. But I don't have the time to do the brackets and the amount of topics, but I'll hand it over to her, and she'll have that as a note. Candy, go ahead. Talk about Calipari. Let me get a word on. This guy is just unbelievable. He does win everywhere he goes. He does a good job at Kentucky, and now he's doing a good job with Arkansas. Go ahead, Candy.
There's a reason why he's in the Basketball Hall of Fame. He's been in there since 2015, and that's because he is a good coach. Right. Yes, he did. He experimented in the NBA. It didn't work there, but he is a really good, excellent college coach where he is 903 and 285.
Great stuff. All right, last topic of the night, talk about Rick Pitino. He wins everywhere he goes. Boston University, Kentucky, Louisville, Iona, and St. John. Okay, Cliff, real quick thoughts about Rick Pitino, who will probably get a contract extension from St. John's anyways.
Well, that's good to hear. I remember him back in the days, back in the 80s with Providence College. Yeah. With John Thompson, Boeheim, and Louis Carnesecca and all that. Yeah, he's if I have any college allegiance for college basketball, it goes back to the early 80s with St. John's and Chris Mullin and Walter Berry and those guys. So it's good to see that he's there. He's got them at the number 5 seed, I believe. And hey, they've been winning. So I hope they can get to the Elite 8. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, Rick Pitino has been a master wherever he's gone, and now to do what he's just done yet again, 5 schools. All right, Tommy.
Yeah, the only thing that surprised me about Pitino that he's still got that edge to him. He's 73, I think, and you wouldn't expect him to still be putting together a program like he has at St. John's. It's pretty remarkable the way he turned that around.
And we're going to make time for Shanahan reports, and Tommy was sport to hang in there with me. But we're going to let him. We're going to do it after Candy gets her word in on this. More power to Rick Pitino. I'd like to see him go as far as he can. Go ahead, Candy.
As a collegiate head coach, Pitino has compiled a record for a 0.708 winning percentage that is ranked 11th among active coaches and 34th all-time among all collegiate basketball coaches. He is one of the first coaches to promote fully taking advantage of the three-point shot, first adopted by the NC2A back in 1987. He also is in the Basketball Hall of Fame, so kudos to him for his longevity in his career.
And kudos to Shanny for staying around for a few minutes, and now we get the Shanahan report before we wrap it up. Tommy is, let me tell you, he is true. Tommy Shanahan is truly one of my best friends in this business. And Candy, Shanny to me is A1. I'm so proud to have Tommy as my right-hand man. He comes through all the time for me. He's my MVP on this network. Go ahead, Tommy.
Yeah, please visit my website, tomshanahan.report. There's a link there. You can buy my books, help me pay for my daughter's tuition at Fashion Institute of Technology in New York, and check out the documentary project we're trying to fundraise for. tomshanahan.report, and my Twitter handle is Shanny4055.
Great stuff, Tommy. Cliff, let everybody know they get all you. Candy will do the same for us, and then we're done. Go ahead.
Okay, just find me on Facebook, Cliff Neal, CLIFF, NEILL, 2 L's on that. Want to talk about sports or whatever? There. All right.
Yeah, and now you can see Cliff every Wednesday night here on the Sports Exchange. Candy, take us the rest of the way.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. Talks about his 40-plus years in the industry and how it has evolved over that time. Go get your copy today. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. The audiobook is also out there if that's the version you prefer. There's a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there is a lot of other great content, so go check that out. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show or be a guest, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Last but not least, if you see the red subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner, that means you have not yet subscribed to us. What are you waiting for? Just click it, like us, share us, and then tell all your friends and family. Turn on your notifications so you never miss one of our great programs. Thanks, Scott. Back to you.
Thanks, Earl. Appreciate you calling me an MVP. Just so you know, I never said Earl. Love you too, Earl. Great friend of the show. All right, well, that does it for us here on the Sports Exchange. I think I did 3 of these in a row, Tommy. I started off with the Motor City Mad Mile show talking about horses, and then we had Steve Ballesteri and I on the Anything Goes, and now we have the Sports Exchange. And I didn't have any non-sports topics on this because Steve and I used a bundle of them on Wednesday, and we kept you guys at sports. So we'll probably have 1 or 2 new additions next week to join the group, so stay tuned and see who they are. But Tommy, I love you, man. Thanks for hanging with me a few extra minutes tonight. So I appreciate everybody being on here. Marky Bilson does an excellent job, and glad that we can beef up this Wednesday night group, and I'm looking to bring in some more people as well. On behalf of Cliff Neal, Marky Bilson already, Tom Shanahan, Candy Eveling, and I said Tom, right? And myself, whatever. We thank you for joining us on the Sports Exchange. Have a good night and enjoy the sports weekend. We'll be back in better than ever tomorrow on the network with a couple more brand new shows. It looks like Sports Rapid Fire. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.